Hello and welcome. Today I have a very interesting guest with me. Today I have somebody who started her first business at the age of 26, and that too in a very interesting space. I found her journey so insightful, and there were so many things that I picked up from it that I just had to share it with you. So join me in welcoming Nuzhat Kazi to our live chat today. Hey Nuzhat, how are you doing?
Hi, Ashton. I'm good. Thank you for the lovely intro.
I am so impressed with all that you've done and you're doing now. So I can't wait for the people who are watching to, understand this journey and, pick up a little tidbits along the way. And guys, just take whatever you can from this and start using it because that's what this is about. We keep putting out content like this on this channel. So please don't forget to hit subscribe and the little bell icon so you know when future videos come out. So,
Thank you so much.
Nuzhat, at 26, you started your business. What were you thinking? Like, how did you even get there? Where did all this start from?
Oh, God. Yeah. Now thinking about it, it seems like so long ago, 26. But my journey started off very young. I've always been working when I was maybe, say, 16, 17 years by internship and stuff like that. But I
Okay.
had a very rough patch when I was 20. When I hit my 20s, I was going through a lot of a very tormenting relationship. And because of that, I had a phase of my life where I was facing a lot of depression. And, my parents realized that and they
Mm,
made sure that I focused my entire energy in my work, in my career. And I started working out as a designer. Then I found like there's no growth in that. So chalo aur kuch karte. Then I started getting into retail. So lovely brands I worked for, which actually changed my life. And
okay.
taught me how to travel by train because I'm a suburban person, like, living in Bandra, born and brought up here. I don't know what is train. They make fun of people watching videos.
Correct.
That probably could be me.
Hmm.
And then when I went there, I got like, I met a lot of influential potential people. And then I said, if I have such a good platform, I should do something more.
Hmm.
Then I got a further education. I went to Italy and I did a master's there. When I came back, I got an opportunity to work for an air charter company.
Okay.
And from there, I realized I have my clients. I know this now. Like I've kind of gauged the space.
Hmm.
Let me venture out and do the hard work for myself.
Hmm.
So with my colleague over there, I just told him, "Let's start something. Will you support me?" He said, "Yeah," and we started.
So you
So
started
it's
an
been
air charter company at the age of 26,
yeah.
right? Like just let that sink in. Like air charter is one of the most difficult things to be in because there are not too many people there are not too many businesses doing it. So
Yeah.
clearly the market is not large enough. And at the age of 26, starting up, working with people who can take air charter, the kind of senior people that would be there, I'm sure that would be a crazy journey in itself.
It was quite difficult because see, when I did a course in Italy,
Hmm.
I never wanted to get back to retail. I did not want to get back to fashion because I was very clear I'm not going to keep selling the same shoes, the same suits and shirts and belts, and there's nothing more I could do. And at that time, because I was working in Taj through a brand,
So
I
this was
used to
the
see
luxury
yachts.
retail.
Yes, luxury retail. It wasn't any retail; it was luxury retail. So there were these really high-end brands, like a French brand called Kenzo.
Okay.
I was working in that briefly, and then I switched to a bigger brand called Armani Gildo Zegna,
Hmm.
which is Italian.
Correct.
And there, when I used to work, it was based in Taj Mahal, Colaba.
Right.
So I used to handle their visual merchandising and set up stores and monitor the guidelines and report to Italy directly.
Hmm.
So there were 7 stores under me at that time when I was 22.
At 22.
And every day traveling to Colaba, I saw lovely yachts. So I knew that when I come back, yachts ka market is already there in India. Let me explore there. But my bad luck when I came back, there were only yachts used for like personal using and a little bit of like, go to Mandwa and come back from the gateway of India. Um, so बाद में I said कि अभी yachts भी कुछ नहीं है. And then LinkedIn के through I got an opportunity saying, why don't you work for air charter? And then I realized that's the only subject I didn't study. In Italy, we studied about yachts, perfumes, leather, apparel, supercars, bikes, museums, everything, but we didn't study about air charter. And it is when you talk about air charter, it's the premium, like the tip of the pyramid when it comes to luxury, because everything else, when you invest money in, you still have value to it throughout. But when you talk about air charter, you get out of your aircraft and those lakhs are gone.
Yeah.
So there is no like, the value is only equivalent to the time that you spend there.
Correct.
So I said, this is lovely. I want to get into this. And it just happened. When I learned the market, I realized that there is so much more I can do.
Hmm.
And I'm hired only and only because I have a connect with all these high HNI influential people who could be a potential because of my previous job experiences.
Hmm.
So then I realized that I'm never really going to grow in a company like that. So I went for interviews for a couple of other companies, and somehow they couldn't believe that, a 22-year-old girl would have that much of contact. So they never hired me,
I
and I
love
wanted to,
it.
like, better companies. And then I said, you know what, no one's hiring me, let me start.
This is why,
So
this
that's
whole,
my
I'm
journey.
harping on your age because I want to show people that age is just a silly number. It is something that holds us back throughout our lives because we keep equating it with other people who are of the same age. But age has nothing to do with any of this, right? You could have grown so much at that young age. Nusrat, I want to jump back a little bit. When you're talking about that you were passing through a stressful time in your life, you were passing through depression, and you said that let me jump into work, right? What were the learnings around that time? Because I know people who will be facing emotional issues right now. Were there a few tips that you learned along the way? One obviously was jumping into work. What did that teach you? Apart from that, what else did you learn?
I think when I channeled my entire energy and shifted my focus to why this is happening in my life, to what I can do about it, it helped me a lot because, when you start something like for a brief time, 6 months, I don't talk about this because it was hardly 6 months, but I had started a boutique because I was a designer. I had started a boutique. And at that time, I realized that, uh, setting up the store, buying inventory, and everything like that was just occupying my mind. Then at that time, my friends would visit me often to plan everything. So it was a happier atmosphere even at home. I didn't have much time because in the whole day I would be so tired that I had just like half an hour left to think. So I was busy. And second thing I learned was I needed to talk. Like my sister and my best friend were there like a rock. There were times when I would be sitting and doing inventory and start crying because, when you're doing inventory, you're quiet.
Yes.
So you're doing your thing, but you're thinking about a lot of things at the same time.
Yes.
And I would just burst out crying, and I would not know why it happened to me. Like it was just something that I would have. And then my friends told me that, if you want self pity, you can do that, do it here, but don't go outside and do that. Because no one's going to actually sympathize with it. It's just going to be another gossip for someone to understand. So talk as much as you can, vent it out to the right people who cannot judge you. And see, that time, 10 years ago, there was no concept of mental health or take a therapy, go and talk to a therapist, see somebody. So if whoever I had to make do with whatever I had. And luckily, I was blessed with good people at that time who wouldn't care. So they helped me, they heard me out, they helped me overcome things. So
and now in
that's
today's
what helped me.
scenario, going to a therapist is something that you would definitely recommend.
I would do definitely. Even if I would feel like basic anxiety, so many times I still call up people and take like 2 weeks therapy, like once in a week. I went because it's how many times can I now keep bugging? At that time, I didn't have any opportunity. I did not know. Mental health is the thing. You can talk to people. So I was just confiding in my sister and my friend. But today I'm in a space where why should I bother anybody with my sad story? Like nobody is here for that. So I rather focus on myself if I know something is wrong because I can figure things out today. So I'll talk to a therapist, I'll sort it out.
Super. So the things I took out from this were, see what you can do about a situation. Don't just keep on, getting into the rut of why me. And when you get into this why me thing, it becomes this self-fulfilling prophecy. Why me, why me, why me? And then you start going down a spiral. Instead of thinking, what is it that I can do about this? And for you, it was throw yourself into work, right? The work, A, occupied your mind, and B, during the quiet times, it allowed the thoughts that were below the surface to come up. And it's a beautiful technique. Some of us use journaling as a tool for exactly this purpose, right? Just writing, and all the thoughts that are under the surface start coming up. Similarly, who knew doing inventory could also be therapeutic in nature? So it's interesting to understand that these kind of learnings can come from everywhere, and inventory and keeping track of inventory could be a good option there. All right, so I love that part. All right, so we got understanding how you dealt with this. Now, from there, what was it that made you go through so many this journey so quickly, right? Normally, people would take their time and multiple years over this, but you went from where you were to studying to working in a company to saying, "Main karti hu."
It's got to do a lot with when I kind of overcame the whole journey of why me. I realized his self-pity. Life is not life is not fair. It's not going to be fair if you're the nicest person. It's not going to be fair if you're the meanest person. It's going to have its ups and downs. That's just the way it is. And the sooner you realize that, the better it will be for you to gather yourself and get back into action. So I'll tell you a little bit of, so I got into depression because of the tormenting relationship I was in. And there was something that my partner at that point told me. He told me, do whatever you want. You're never going to be able to gather your life back from this point. You're so affected by everything that you're never going to grow. You're never going to gather your life back. And for me, it was a point to prove to myself.
It was almost like a challenge.
Like 6 months ho gaya na, I can't sulk. 1 saal, 10 saal bhi nikal jayega. And whatever he said to me is right. I'm not going to gather myself.
Correct.
So it was important to forcefully attempt that. Like, try to gather yourself and move on. So I think that line hit me and it stayed with me even till today. So even if like I have to face anything and I have to feel bad, I will sulk and I will vent it out. I will feel it. But then I won't allow it to linger. Like, I'll be like, okay, done. Now what next? It happened to me. Now main kya karu?
Correct.
So I'm going to move on.
And is that one line still a driver for you that's stuck in your head?
Yeah. I will never forget that. It hit me. It hit me in a place where it's etched now. I've healed from that. I've moved on. But it made so much sense to me that, if I'm not going to gather myself from any situation in life, I'm always going to be there. And what he said is always going to be right about me. And I never want to give him, even subconsciously, whether he's in my life or not, that privilege to be, I told you so. I will never let him do that to me anymore.
Yeah. These moments, I know, it's bubbling. I can see it. I remember something similar that had happened to me when I was in school. And I think we just finished the 10th standard and I was, like all kids in the 10th standard, whiling away time. And one of my parents' friends sat me down and said, "You're a complete loser. You're going to amount to nothing. Do you know what I was doing at your age?" And that was like, it's still stuck in my head. It's like, how dare he call me a loser? I'll show you. and that also drove me, right? But at that moment in time, it was one of the worst feelings ever.
I know.
Ever. Right? And the best thing about these horrible experiences that you can look back in time and say, oh, now it's not so bad. Right? It's like your horror stories become your victory stories. Right? Your horror stories becomes, because of that, I was able to do this.
And I think sometimes you need that push. You need that reality check because you're so happily sometimes in your comfort zone that you just take everything for granted. And it's very important to get that little nudge that, listen, what you think of yourself is not the end of the world. Correct. There are other people who are drawing an opinion of you. So get your shoes like up and ready and get going.
Absolutely. It's a thappad. Padak.
Yeah.
Right? So this was one of those driving things or driving force saying, I will show you.
Yeah.
Right? At some point of time, I'm sure that external motivation of I'll show you must have turned into an internal motivation of this is what excites me and this is why I'm doing what I'm doing. Did you have a moment like that? Or have you spent time thinking about what that could be?
See, as a person, I'm very short-term goal-oriented person. I have a vision, but my vision is not like 50 saal baad. Like I'm very like 2 years later, 1 year later. I give myself those short-term goals, and I see like, okay, what I'm doing right now, where is it going to lead me? What do I want out of it? So if this makes me happy right now, I'll only focus on that till I get to that point, and I'm like, okay, now what next? So it's not too much of planning and too much of thinking. If my work is giving me happiness right now, I'm doing what I love to do. I'll keep doing it till a point where I reach where there's like what do you call that word?
Plateau.
Plateau. I'll plateau basically. So if I plateau, then I'm gonna again brainstorm and think. But I know that being independent being driven
Hmm.
is something that motivates me the most. I could be doing anything in the future. A client once told me, Nuzat, marry your work.
Hmm.
Marry your work. Don't marry a company.
Hmm.
Companies can change.
Hmm.
Keep your drive. Like, marry work. Don't marry a company. I won't be like, Are mein ye company, it's my life. Because, sometimes you get attached working for a organization or a company or anything. Even with my Zara today,
Hmm.
uh, I love it. I love the name. I came up with it. It's my baby. But if I have to come and think of it realistically, like if I'm doing well and I have somebody has to buy me out, I will look at the deal. If it
Hmm.
seems well enough, I will give it a, like, I'm very practical like that.
Hmm.
I'll marry my work because I'll keep working.
Hmm.
It doesn't have to uh, get me to a point where I'm in standstill. Today, Zara is doing well. Now I'm going to be venturing out into another venture also very soon,
Correct.
shortly, like on the 25th of July.
Hmm.
I look at launching something that I'm working on.
Right.
So I move on with my work.
Very
Baki
interesting.
company, nature of work doesn't matter.
It's not what you're doing, it is the concept of work that is something that is driving you as an idea. So when you started Zare, it was something that you knew because of the company that you were working in before. So what were the learnings about starting a company for the first time from scratch? What are like the three
Oh
biggest
God.
things? What are the three biggest things that people should watch out for when they start something?
That people should, sorry, what?
When people start a business, what are the three things that they should look out for?
Okay, three things that you should look out for when you start a business is never put your guard down.
Okay.
People will take you for a ride, including CAs, including accountants, including clients, including your colleagues. Everyone is going to take you for a ride, your ex-colleagues or everyone, because they just think that you're new and you are struggling. And you want to make a mark, you want to get a deal done. So everyone is going to try to milk you the most. So never let your guard down. Never ever. Like, be alert, know what you want, and never give them the vibe that you're desperate for anything. You may want it very desperately, you're dying, but don't show it. Allow things to cool, because the more you put your self out there in a spot, people are going to take advantage of you. So never do that. I learned it the hard way.
And that is clearly
And
something
what
that you're
else?
carrying
Second thing,
with you. This one.
because because a lot of people in the start, including like my earlier, see, now I'm coming from a business background. My parents are from, but I had a point to prove, it's my thing. I'll do it on my own. So I figured out my new CAs and everything. Now, when you talk about sales, I can sell anything. I'm confident. But when you talk about like technicalities, accounts, finance, ledgers, everything, I'm still learning. And back then, 5 years ago, I was still very young. So a lot of people would not explain everything to me properly. But I would chew their brains and then they would get irritated and then they would snap at me. And then, a lot of those things would happen. But I still didn't care. I was such a heat that I said, no, it's okay. You can hate me. I'll change my CA. I'll change my services. And even with clients, I remember they would milk me for like thousand bucks. They would bargain with me. But I would just say, no, sir. How are you doing this? And, like I would manipulate the situation to make them feel bad. Then I getting milked. And never allow that for yourself.
It's so important that you said that. One thing is to create that team, right? A team that you can trust.
Yeah.
Right. And if you don't have that team that you can trust, you're always going to be careful, watchful, and in agony as a business owner.
Yeah, because how many things can a person individual see? You need to dedicate and you need to trust and you need to rely, because everyone can't do. I have my strengths and I have my weaknesses. So I must acknowledge that and understand and fill in the gap. Like my business partner, he's fantastic with operations, fantastic with executions, groundwork and everything. And he's very calm. And I'm the one who's like all over the place. When things go wrong, I'm like venting at him. Why is it happening? And then he'd be like, just relax, call me after 10 minutes. By that 10 minutes, he's calmly thought through. He'll fix everything. And, then I'm like, okay, it's not such a big deal. So
Nice.
It's very important to have somebody who can fill your gap. Like I'm very bad with maybe sometimes following through.
Hmm.
I'm very good with getting things started in motion, going and getting a deal done. But my execution bit little bit, because maybe that's not my strength.
Hmm.
I wouldn't say I'm bad at it, but like somewhere I lack the skills to execute things very smoothly. That's when Amit comes and fills in the gap. So it's very important for me to let him handle that.
So it's almost like have a yin and yang business partner.
Yeah, I always
Make
say we are a
somebody
fire and ice, yin and yang combo.
fire and ice yin and yang combo. Love it. Okay. And so this was going on. Now suddenly you are in a situation where coronavirus has hit, right? Everybody's life has changed. I don't know if people are flying. I don't know how you managed to do it. So when all this started happening, A, what were your thoughts? And B, what did you end up doing? How did you end up thinking about it?
My thoughts. I don't know. I was just very worried. In fact, I thought that, oh wow, aviation is going to pick up now because no one's going to really fly in those commercial planes. So I was actually hoping that these smaller planes that are sometimes clients would not want to fly on will start picking up and they'll do more business. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case because people just start getting so scared that they stop flying.
Right.
Forget flying on bigger planes and chota planes. They just stopped flying because nobody wanted to leave their house. Mad curfews were on. So only flights that were like medical supplying medical equipment. So somebody was getting a transplant done and there was some organ that needed to urgently come. Or, things like that. Or maybe, very, very like high-end political CM level flights were only happening. Rest, this entire sky was under lockdown. So even if somebody wanted them, we couldn't fly them. So
how did you move from the
bad
luxury
shape.
clients to these kind of clients who needed organ transplants or business? Or,
No, this is a part of one of the services that we do irrespective.
Okay.
So when we have, we do like 6-7 kind of services in Zaar. So we do like election flying for campaigning during, political state
Correct.
campaigns. Then we do human remain transfer services. If someone's, unfortunately had a demise and they want to get the body back home, then we help in organizing that. And we do regular charters. We do joyride services where, somebody wants to see the city on a helicopter or just take that thing but doesn't afford the whole couple of lakhs. And they can pay like a premium amount, like 25,000 and take a spin around the city for 10 minutes. Things like that.
Nice.
So we were always catering to air ambulance plane and everything like that. We in fact have a plane with us on lease also for the next like 5-6 years.
Oh, wow. So basically you saw one aspect of your business go down, one aspect of your business go up. And that's how the balance took place.
The balance was there.
All right. And then you were saying that in the middle of this lockdown, you started thinking about what next you can do. Right?
Yeah. So this is a very interesting thing, Ashton. I want to share with you that we are all going so crazy with the current sanitization and coronavirus and everything. But, in other countries, sanitizing is just a way of life. Like it's not something that they do because of the virus. It's something that they imbibe doing. Like, especially in like Far East, in Tokyo, Japan and Taiwan, all these places, they always wear a mask. They always wear gloves. They always sanitize. And with coronavirus coming in, I just wanted to see that chemists and everyone are selling sanitizers for ridiculous prices. I remember buying sanitizer for 1,500 rupees because there was no other cheaper version of it. And alcohol sanitizer. So what can I do with that message? I can sanitize my hands. Little bit I can spray here and there, but it has a foul odor to itself, like alcohol. And if you wipe it off with your things like your makeup and all of that, then the color comes off and things get spoiled.
Right.
So thinking about like how can I bridge this gap, and otherwise they were like there's nothing cheap available. And every other person is getting into this space right now. It's cluttered because everybody thinks they can make money.
Yeah.
So I said, let me monetize on this opportunity where I can create a product, but I don't want to fleece people. I want to create a product that everybody can use for sanitizing, but it's not expensive because सब में ज़्यादा कोरोना वायरस का सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग का अपॉर्चुनिटी जहाँ नहीं होता है वो है slums. And slums cannot afford these 500-700 rupees का sanitizers, so they want maintain that hygiene.
Correct.
So what can I give them? That's something that they can buy, they can use, and they can maintain, because all of us Swiggy guys are staying in not so privileged places, all of our Zomato guys, all of these restaurant people, waiters, they're not staying in such circumstances where they can social distance themselves. At least they can do is maintain hygiene. At least they can sanitize. So this product is called Shuddh Goli. And it's like one pill, one like tiny pill, which is made of NADCC, which is a chemical compound for sanitizing, approved by the FDA.
Okay.
And you just dissolve it into the water, in 20 liters of water. Soak your fruits and vegetables, the edibles, and rinse it off after 10 minutes. And you're good to go. And the remaining residue of water, use it to mop your floor, use it to clean your window panes, use it to clean your vehicles. And fir bhi bach jata, just throw it in your compound on the floor. So it's water, water will evaporate and it'll also sanitize it. So it's a multi-purpose all-in-one pill. And I'm trying to use it in a concept where one pill can be used in one day for your entire daily cleaning purposes.
Nice.
So if you buy a packet of like 30, a bottle of 30, you're set for like 1 month and it hardly costs 450 rupees. But it's like taking care of your entire, you don't want to buy like those strong alcohol sanitizers. You don't want to buy the kitchen or cleaning, flooring, other things. So if you're saving on so much money by not buying 10 other things and investing only in one. So that's the concept of this.
And this takes care of viruses and stuff like that as well.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Okay.
This is in fact so safe that the FDA approves it. Ek goli ko 200 liters of pani mein dal do, especially for your building tanks and all of that. So suppose your building tank is 600 liters or 1000 liters or whatever. Throw one tablet for 200 liters ke ratio ke hisab se. Throw it in your building tank and your water is purified of all the bacteria and everything. Safe for drinking. So governments actually use this product a lot during hazardous times, during floods and stuff like that, because a lot of water-prone diseases can be taken care of if you maintain the quality and the ratio of doing it. This actually even kills viruses. Like, I mean, I don't know how HIV would come on a vegetable or fruit, but like, somebody is, God forbid, contaminated with anything like a HIV or something, then if their blood, they cut a hand and they've used it for something and you spray it on that, it will kill even that. So it's that potent, yet that safe.
Okay. Interesting. And how did you manage to solve all this stuff and create the product and all of that during this time, during a lockdown when everyone's stuck at home?
I had a lot of time in hand because charter wasn't happening. So I just started doing a lot of research. I can't afford like people because Swiggy and Amazon, so we are ordering a lot of stuff lately. And then, we would keep it outside for like one whole day and then take it in. And twice, my stuff got stolen doing that. And it was just fruits. It was just like fruits that I'd called from these big basket sites, but I kept it outside my door. So maybe my kachre wali took it or I don't know what. But my stuff got stolen. So I said, how do you stop this? You can't take it inside your house because of coronavirus.
Correct.
Like germs and all of that. You have to spray the things and keep it out for so long.
Yeah.
So I kept researching and then I came across something like that. Then I wanted to tweak it and we'll be launching it with another fragrant versions of it also later on so that it smells a little bit more pleasant. But right now, that's not the need.
But where is this chemical used right now? Is it used in medical applications or how did you research it and come up with the idea that we'll use this chemical versus something else, etc.?
So my family business, we manufacture steam boilers.
Okay.
That's we have a couple of factories and one of the biggest factories in Napa in Vashi, New Bombay. So over there, my father, we've always been using this chemical compound for sanitizing like once a month for cleaning. This compound is anyways available and used readily by poultry industry, by chemical industry, so that all the germs and everything can die and your safety is contained. And also because this is alcohol free, it doesn't create fire, any fire hazard. So it's easier to store, it's easier to use. So we've been using that anyway. So I try to tweak it in the right quantity, getting the approvals and everything, working with the manufacturer. How can this, in what quantity we can fix this and make it in a tablet form. So it's mixed further with effervescent chemicals.
Okay.
So
interesting. So it goes boop, boop, boop. It like an Alka-Seltzer.
Like how your Disprin is.
Yeah.
Like that.
Lovely. And when you're going through this whole process, what were the points that you thought of, like saying that as a business, this needs to be taken care of. These are the three important things that anyone who's starting a business like this should think about. Like I remember you were talking to me saying that it's crazy getting a PAN card number during this time, right? I'm sure you would have found other difficulties that you faced during this time. What would the learnings from this be?
Everything because of the pandemic and the lockdown, because people are not working, people are working from home. Everything is happening, but it's happening at a turtle pace. Like it's so like a tortoise. It's so slow. Normally, application and company formation takes about start to end 20 days. I've been working on it since 2 months now because up till my PAN card, like I said, and my PAN card's not come. And normally 24 hours में speed post में PAN card office पुणे में चले जाता है. They are over there. Everyone is there. The team is working. They verify all the documents, and in 1 week you get your PAN and everything. Now, though it's become digitalized, but still it's not happening. It's been like over 15 days and I'm waiting. So you just need to have patience because there's nothing else happening. Everyone's work is going slow.
And Nuzhat, why did you think of starting a business during this time instead of sitting home and watching Netflix?
Because I don't know if I would just be like a pumpkin sitting there watching and chilling and being in my comfort zone. And I was fearing that I would get lazy.
Okay.
So once you get, like I said, Ashlyn, if you get comfortable in your comfort zone, then, it's very difficult to push yourself out of it. So I didn't want to get into that. Air charter has dipped a bit, quite a bit actually. And there was nothing really happening. How many times can I live in that anxiety and fear all over again? Okay, now what? And then again, I'm so paranoid. If I become lazy, then I'm not going to like to work. So it was important for me to not let this habit go of every day getting up on time. I've really tried very hard in this lockdown to maintain a routine, which is anyways going crazy.
Yeah.
So I started realizing that I've been getting up like 1 hour late, 2 hour late, 3 hours, and then I realized that what is wrong with me? It's not right. I'm just going to start rotting. Like the whole concept of binge watching in the night and then sleeping till late hours is just not cool. My parents don't do that.
Yeah.
So I won't allow that habit to form. Never.
Very, very good. In fact, one of the first podcasts that I did during this lockdown period was get yourself a schedule and stick to a schedule, because this is the time when you will start seeing all your habits start disappearing. You will think that, it's only for 14 days. Let me enjoy. And then you will start seeing it diminish. And the frustration will come in because now you're saying, I'm not the same productive person I was. I'm not the same person. I'd worked so hard on all these habits.
Yeah,
now they're completely gone. So creating that schedule is so important when you are, stuck at home in this kind of a situation. Do you have a particular place where you sit down and work?
Yeah, I've actually, I have a very big room. Okay. So my room fits my study, everything. Like I have my cross trainer. So I ordered a cross trainer online before the lockdown restarts again. So I said, some mode of exercise is important. So I ordered a study table. I shut my office. I had an office in Pala.
Yeah.
But I shut that. So I called my study table here into my room, got my cross trainer in my room. And this is like my mini studio apartment. Like my parents also think like they make fun of me. They say that it doesn't feel like you're living with us in lockdown. It feels like you're going to work. And then I get out like by say 8:30, I go out.
Correct.
So I go out to eat my lunch on the table with them when they call me.
And then come back.
And come back inside. So till 8, like from say 11 to 8, I'm in my room only.
So similar things are happening here because of the amount of work that has increased because of this lockdown. So even we have had to pivot many things. So our main core business, Ormax, had to pivot and look for different opportunities. The habit coaching business had to pivot and look at different ways of doing the coaching now online, etc. So it's turned into the same thing.
But how is habit, isn't habit forming, like from your perspective, I'm trying to understand, isn't that like going to be a little bit more in demand because people must be so wanting to know how to get into the right frame of mind, what they must imbibe and they must not, like they must be consulting you. That must have picked up, right?
Yeah. So in the beginning, it didn't, because everyone was in a semi self-pity mode and in a semi mode of everything we look after the lockdown opens up. So I think the first 2 months were all about nobody wanting to do anything. even when we started our no sugar challenge the first time around, people weren't excited about it, saying that you're telling me I'm stuck at home and you're telling me no sugar. What is the point? So there was that kind of, a little bit of self-pity that was there amongst people. But in the last month and a half, I've got, I think, 7 new clients on board because of this. So, it is something that is going to keep increasing. And it's such an easy
Can I
format.
ask you, what is this no sugar challenge thing that you had done? I am very intrigued because I've gained 6 kilos in this lockdown. So I want to know, what is the no sugar challenge?
So the no sugar challenge is, so we've partnered with this app called Plan My Food. And I've been doing no sugar challenges in the past 4 years, like 100 days at a time. But this is a 30-day challenge before you freak out. So it's just 1 month of having products that don't contain sugar. And the idea is to make you aware of all the food that we're eating that actually contains sugar. So your mayonnaise contains sugar, your ketchup contains sugar, your mustard contains sugar, your chutneys contain sugar. Obviously, the potato chips that you're having contain sugar, the chivda will. And we don't realize this, but we're constantly eating way more sugar than the dietary recommends, right? And this app, Plan My Food, what it does is you take a picture of a product, it will scan the barcode and tell you what is available, what the ingredients are. And it'll find out if it has hidden sugars or not. So, Plan My Food. So we started this as a challenge because, what you need basically for giving up sugar is 3 things. You need one, the knowledge. So what contains sugar and how you should stop it. The second is you need the determination and the willpower. Correct? And the third thing is you need community. You need a support system. So through this program, we're giving all 3. So you bring your willpower, we'll give you the knowledge, and we'll give you the community. So the support system. So together you can give up and kick the sugar bucket, as it were.
Yeah, I always envy people who don't have a sweet tooth. That is like the biggest blessing that they can do to themselves. And if you notice, a lot of people who don't have a sweet tooth, their body frame is more or less, they might not be the fittest or the healthiest, but they're never broad, they're never fat, that extra fat, that sugar, and that, sudden high and then that sudden low and mood swings that happens because of sugar.
You
never see people who don't have a sweet tooth have that. Like, that's amazing.
I'm a big sugar junkie. I love sugar. So for me, the only way to give up sugar is through these challenges, because if I'm not on a challenge, I will be eating sugar. So I hate that feeling. Yeah. So that is why this challenge has been one of the best things that we've started. Especially, the people who did. Last time we did, I think we had about 180 people doing it on a WhatsApp group. So that was
180 people. That is insane.
And I think almost 170 completed it. So fantastic. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. Keep me looped now and something like that happens. I don't know if I can try to do something, but I can attempt.
We're starting on the 1st of August. Every month, 1st we're going to start. So this August, you join in.
Chalo, I'll try. Okay, I'm not a good student with this because, we girls, we have like those issues with PMS. I want to eat chocolate.
all your determination is now focused on to work. You have to drag a little bit out and put it into the no sugar part also.
Yeah.
Lovely. Nuzhat, it was fantastic talking to you. Are there any things that you want to leave behind? Tell the people who are watching this or hearing this, what should they keep in mind?
I think 1 or 2 things that they can understand from me is to, focus all your energy in work. Even Lady Gaga had said that, if you have a choice between choosing somebody in your life and your work, choose your work, because it's never going to wake up and say it doesn't love you anymore. So please put in your energy into work and you'll become a better version of yourself, and be open to learning and be open to trying. Yeah, like big deal. Like you try, you fail, you try again. No big deal. If I don't do well with Shuddh Goli, I don't know what I'm going to do next, but I'm open to the concept. I'm trying.
So
and
now,
please buy Shuddh Goli.
So you got Zar Air and now you got Shuddh Goli, right? 2 products at complete extremes. One hyper luxury, one extremely affordable.
Yeah, very massy, very classy. Like it's
full on, 2 ends. So good job. It's going to be an interesting journey. I'm very, very excited to see where Shuddh Goli goes, and best of luck to you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It was lovely to talk to you, and you're very inspiring. I'm very happy that you did a podcast or this whole video thing with me, because I just feel like I don't have so much to offer maybe, but then when I'm looking at you, I just feel like maybe I must have done thoda kuch in life that, I'm here today. So I feel a little cool about myself now.
No, because
So thank you.
when I first heard your story, so we don't know each other at all, right? We were
Exactly,
introduced
no.
to each other, and after hearing your story, I was like, wow, what would have gotten into a 26-year-old's head to say that I am going to enter the hyper luxury space of chartered air travel? And that was just the concept that blew my mind. And I couldn't figure out saying that, matlab, is it because she comes from an extremely well-to-do family, so she has 5 jets that she could charter out? Like, what was it that started it? And that's why I was curious, because I was like, if someone can do this, it can at least inspire somebody with one thought. Even if there's 2 businesses, 3 businesses that start off from something like this, from this conversation, I will be so happy, because I feel that
Oh, I'll be so
creating
happy.
a business is one of the most powerful things that you can do. Not being
Yeah,
dependent on anybody else is such a empowering habit.
yeah, yeah.
Right?
That is true. You feel really nice when you go back to bed. Having completed a list every day, which nobody tells you to do, but you do it because you want to do it for yourself.
Yeah.
It's a very good feeling.
And many people will say, yeah, but I'm not the self-motivated type. If only somebody told me what to do, I'll do it. I don't know. And all those self-doubts creep
But
in.
there's no harm in being like that. Like, see, I just feel like there have to be every type of people. There have to be doctors, and then there have to be nurses. There have to be builders, and then there have to be laborers. So there has to be a balance. So there's no harm if you're not somebody who cannot get motivated, as long as you are motivated enough to do what you're told to do. That also is good enough. Like, it's fine. Everybody cannot, like, if everybody's going to be a doctor, then who's going to be a compounder? Then who's going to be a nurse? If everybody is going to be an architect, then who's going to build your house? So there are every type of people are important, and every kind of job is credible. And as long as you're motivated to do what you're told to do, at least it should be fine.
And that's at least a starting step along the way. And like you
Yeah.
correctly put it, it's not about necessarily starting a business as much as it is about the hard work that you're putting into it.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
You can actually frame it so well. I'm so bad at that.
See, that's the advantage of having 7-minute podcasts. I have to take a very, very complicated concept and say it in 7 minutes. So
Lovely.
that's the advantage of it. All right. Thank you so much for joining in. Thank you so much for listening to us.
Thank you.
See you. Bye-bye.
Bye.